What are we showing off?
Something very important, Dumbo.
Maybe you get back to work, Sean. Maybe go to bed.
Haruka, Haruka. Haruka, Haruka, Haruka. Haruka, 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 Haruka. Haruka. I don't think words are enough to express how much I like this woman. From the amazing character design, to the gorgeous Ichigo art, to her using one of the best kinds of footwear, the always speak idle motif, there's really only one issue could have with Haruka, which would be to look at her at low quality. Thankfully it's very easy to solve that with LD Player, who now has its own dedicated ad-free Arknights launcher. That way you can play the game in the closest version of a PC client we have for now that, like I said before, lets you easily customize display settings to play in 4K and appreciate this game's amazing art with the best quality. All you need to do is use my link in the description and download the files. After that, simply follow the launcher's steps, download the updates, and you'll be playing the game in no time. So again, just use my link in the description and try it out for yourself. I'm very grateful to LD Player for sponsoring this video. Now we can go back to Haruka. And Hypergriff didn't disappoint with her kit in terms of power. In fact, it created a monster in terms of healing and utility with Haruka. So let's analyze her kit to see why she's so good. Starting with S1. Do not use this skill. It's pointless.
But I think it looks pretty good.
You don't. Trust me. Haruka's S1 is one of the better pointless skills in the game. What it does is just give her plus 60 attack speed and makes more bubbles when other bubbles pop. First thing is that attack speed buff. See, Haruka is an abjurer, so she doesn't normally heal like you see on screen right now. Instead, her default state is to simply attack mobs and not heal anyone at all. Only when you activate her skills that she'll start healing like a medic. Obviously this is a very big downside, because it's not like the ops in this archetype deal good damage. That's why Hypergriff usually gives them a lot of utility on their skills, like Quirkus giving SP for every heal on her S2, or just give them infinite duration skills so they are always on healer mode. And that's the idea of the attack speed buff. Since Haruka will start healing once S1 is up, it serves to increase how much she heals every second. And put increase in that because, as you can see, S1 lets Haruka heal more than even Tolopsis. But it actually gets even better when you talk about these bubbles she has been placing on the ops. They come from Talent 1 and are the backbone of Haruka's kit. Basically, whenever an ally unit is deployed in her range, Haruka will attach a bubble to them, and while that bubble remains intact, they get a 30% sanctuary. So just for existing, Haruka can give 30% damage reduction to everyone in her range, which is exactly as broken as it sounds, and will definitely save your ops in a lot of situations. Really the only weakness these bubbles have is that they're bubbles, so they pop whenever the op gets attacked and you lose the effect. But Haruka doesn't care even if that happens, because the way she grants the bubbles is after every attack interval, so every 1.6 seconds she can generate a new bubble and refresh the ones that get destroyed. It's just that it might take some time to cover everyone again. And I do mean everyone, because Haruka can bubble any ally up, from normal ops to enemy units that can't normally be healed, regular summons, special summons, basically any ally that can be killed by enemies. The only things she doesn't cover are some special summons like Stainless Turrets or Pozemka's Typewriter since they can't take damage from enemies, which lets Haruka not waste time bubbling them. Like I said, this talent is very broken, so much so that every skill in Haruka's kit interacts with it. S1 for instance already buffs this talent with just the attack speed buff, since like I said before, she grants bubbles based on her attack interval, so once S1 is up, Haruka will start spamming them and be able to keep up with basically any mob as they pop the bubbles. Not just that, but every time one of them bursts, S1 will immediately generate another one on one ally in the 8 surrounding tiles of her that happened, so Haruka will be able to refresh them a lot faster when there are a lot of allies in range getting attacked instead of having to do it one by one. So S1 gets an insane amount of burst healing as well as a way to spam her broken bubbles. Why did I say she'll never use it then? The other skills are better. It's literally just that. And I'm specifically referring to S2 here. That skill is just oppressively strong, and because it covers basically the same area as S1, there's really no reason to just not use that one instead. Especially because of S1's biggest weakness, which is what I said before about how this archetype isn't able to heal on downtime, which for this skill lasts 25 seconds. So for that entire downtime, all she can do is keep casting bubbles and praying the skill charges back up, something that S2 doesn't care about at all. Technically S1 does does have more burst healing, so you could make a point to use it for that, but even in that aspect it gets beaten by S3, so there's really no reason to use S1. But I guess it serves as a nice introduction to her bubbles.
She's so fine, bro. Like these boots too, like they're always so good.
It's like Chen's boots.
No, they aren't. My God.
Chen has like the weird ass boots with all the the stockings. Oh wait, no, they're a bit different.
Oh, like,
They're reversed.
there's a cardboard tied with a rope. Like please, her boots are actually like they're
You know what? Yeah,
something.
it looks professional.
They're cooking. They're cooking in there. Okay.
Oh my god, no, shut
They're
up.
cooking.
Shut up. Hey, shut up.
And so we get to S2. Like I implied or pretty much said on the S1 section, this is Haruka's best skill and the one that dethroned Dei as the best AFK healer. What it does is very simple, as you can see from how little text it has. Basically, Haruka will heal and cast bubbles on one additional target, and when she heals an op by any amount, she also deals 200% of that value as arts damage to up to 3 mobs near them. Like I said, simple but also extremely busted. S2 takes very basic buffs and turns Haruka into an absolute beast. And it all starts with these two. I've already shown on this one section how broken these bubbles are, so having her apply them to one more target per attack interval is a great start. And something I didn't mention is that Haruka's base target count is 2 with her module, so by giving her +1 healing target, S2 lets her heal up to 3 ops per attack, which, since I already started the comparison, is one more than Aya's S1. But if we're talking about what really sets Haruka S2 apart, that will be the damage. Not because that's the main focus of this skill, in fact it's just a decent amount of arts damage, so it's never gonna compete with an actual DPS op. But the point here is that Haruka's healing is already busted, so being able to also complement her team's DPS is a completely necessary thing that just pushes her even more above the other healers. Especially because I did say it was decent arts damage, but as you can see on screen that's more than enough to deal with even elites as long as they don't have very high res. A big reason for that is the way her damage works, since she can dish it out per ally healed, so the more ops you have close to the mobs, the more damage she'll be able to deal. Now, like I said before, she does have a 3 target limit, so you can't keep adding more bodies forever to deal more damage, but there is usually enough for her to deal with most enemies. In fact, you can even use her as a solo DPS and sustain in some stages. That's how reliable both her damage and especially her healing are. So Haruka can give 30% damage reduction to every op in her range, an insane amount of constant healing to up to 3 ops, has a decent amount of DPS to help her team while she heals.
Isn't that a bit too broken? What? Are you gonna tell me that her bubbles also heal next?
Yeah, so about that. Like I said before, her bubbles will pop if a mob hits an op that has them, which makes them lose the 30% sanctuary until Haruka reapplies it. But Talent 2 makes so the bubbles will also heal the ops whenever they pop, which is massive for Haruka because of 2 reasons. The first is that it increases her healing even more, because she obviously didn't do that enough already. But the second reason is even more important, and it goes back to what I said on this one section about the weakness of her archetype. Haruka can't heal while her skills aren't active, which is a pretty heavy downside to cover. But thanks to both Talent 1 and 2, she can easily circumvent that, because it's pretty damn hard to kill someone that has 30% damage reduction and gets healed every time they are hit. Funnily enough, though, S2 is the skill that benefits the least out of this because of this last aspect of it I didn't talk about until now, which is the fact it has unlimited duration after using it a second time. Since both S1 and S3 have downtime periods, this talent combo becomes essential to keep her ops up while Haruka recharges, and it's quite effective even under a lot of pressure as you can see. But since S2 has unlimited duration from the second activation, it's not as reliant on them as the other skills, which is actually great since needing mobs to hit her ops for them to be healed ends up being very map reliant in some cases. So the way S2 interacts with these talents other than the obvious more heal and 30% damage reduction is actually while the skill's still charging, during the very start of stages when waves are usually very weak. That way Haruka can go through both the first activation as well as the downtime after it while still being able to sustain, to then finally get her infinite skill, that will also be stronger than the first thanks to the plus 40% attack buff she gets. Like I said, this skill is very busted. Not only lets Haruka heal for an obscene amount, but it's also extremely simple to use, requiring you just activate it 2 times and be done with it for the rest of the stage. In other words, if you're capable of using Thorns as S3, you can also use Haruka S2. The question some people probably have now then is, what about Aya? And yeah, like I've implied and said many times, Haruka just completely powercrapped Aya in terms of healing, to the point where it's actually disrespectful how much better she is. And just so you understand how much, let me list some things for you. Haruka has more healing per second at around 550 against Aya's 484, can heal 3 targets per attack while Aya caps at 2, has actually decent DPS while Aya just has none, costs less DP, more defense, more res, a lot more HP, the 30% damage reduction from the bubbles. Really, the only things Aya still has over her is the bigger range and the fact she can heal elemental damage. So she would be the better choice if you want to avoid that. But Haruka beats her in every other aspect.
She won't have to bench my Elena.
If you want to use the best healer, yes, but I would like to remind you that this is Arknights. If you've been playing this game for some time, then you know that Hypergriff really isn't interested in scaling 99% of the content to 6-star level. I actually think this comment I got on Bilibili once summarizes it well. This guy managed to highlight the main differences between them in a very eloquent and well-spoken manner, and I do agree with everything he said. So no, you don't need to
Thank you.
unless you're really adamant on only bringing 1 healer per stage, and that healer has to be the strongest and most comfortable one possible. Because that's what Haruka is. So much so that I don't even have a weaknesses section for S2. Not because you can't find one if you look hard enough, but rather because this skill is basically perfect for how 99% of the people watching this will use it. So if you want Haruka's best skill and one of the most absurd ones they ever released, you can't go wrong here.
Where's her animal? Like, oh, the animal. She's a fish. Oh, she's a fish. She's a goldfish.
The goldfish, you know?
Yeah, she's a anglerfish. No.
An anglerfish.
Hey.
That's an anglerfish, then. That's what she looks like to you.
Well, let's cut this out, right?
Finally then we get to S3. This is the most out there skill in Haruka's kit, as you can see, which honestly kinda works in its favor since now it doesn't directly compete with S2. And again, this is another very short skill. The first thing to notice is the plus 55% attack, increased range and attack speed. As you should know by now, Haruka's normal attacks are converted into healings when on skill, so the extra attack and attack speed are there to increase her healing per second as well as the bubble generation speed, since that's tied to attack interval. And the range increase is actually massive. It gives Haruka more reach than even Nightingale's S3 because of the 2 extra tiles at the top. And the Nightingale similarity actually doesn't stop here, since Haruka's S3 also further reduces the damage her upstake. But this time, instead of it increasing the res and giving Arch dodge, it does that by doubling her talent 1 Sanctuary. So now while S3 is active, her bubbles will give 60% damage reduction, which actually reduces Arch damage more than Nightingale if the op has 0 base res, since she can only increase it to 42 from there, which translates to 42% less Arch damage. Of course, Nightingale also gives Arch dodge, has her 75 res, 6k HP cages with taunts, and many ops have more than 0 res, so she will still be the better one against Arch in general. But the fact that Haruka can compare to her in some cases really shows how strong her Sanctuary is, and let's not forget that unlike Nightingale, she isn't locked to arts. So every physical attack will also be reduced by 60% of this skill, which is one of the reasons I can drop 2-star Yato in front of Patron and have her survive throughout all of S3. But it's not the main one, which is how we get to the flashiest aspect of S3. They float now. See, the last effect of S3 makes so every time a mob attacks a bubbled ally, Haruka will levitate them for 2 seconds and deal 80% of attack as arch damage every second. This is first and foremost hilarious. Just seeing a boss unable to do anything while they get tossed in the air really is a special sight. But other than comedic effects, there are practical benefits to this. If an enemy attacks very fast or does multiple hits per attack, then S3 will just interrupt them for 2 seconds every time they hit her ups. And when you couple the 40 seconds duration protection and 60% damage reduction, with the fact Haruka will be healing throughout all of S3 and that enemy attacks are being constantly interrupted to toss them in the air, that means you have to try really hard for someone to die while S3 is up. Another interesting thing is the way Haruka levitates mobs, since like I said they'll be tossed in the air after attacking the bubble, so it's not limited to inside of Haruka's range. All it needs to happen is for a mob to pop them from anywhere in the map, so S3 has basically global range when it comes to the levitating part, and you can use it to deal with those rare but annoying global range mobs when they show up. I did say her entire kit revolves around these bubbles, didn't I? Well, guess what? They still do more. And it's all thanks to her module. Yeah, as you can see, Hypergriff thought the bubbles were still lacking, so they also decided to give them an SP battery. And I know what a lot of you guys are thinking, but I'm gonna cut this short and say this is mediocre.
But this is an SP battery. How could it not be broken?
Yes, normally those are very strong, but for Haruka here that's just not the case. First because it only takes effect when the bubbles pop, so if you don't have a constant stream of mobs to hit her ups, then it just won't work. But even when they are bursting, there's still the biggest issue here, which is the fact it only has a 20% chance of giving SP at mod level 3. And I don't even need to tell you how low that is, you can literally watch it on screen. Even though I have a way to constantly cycle the bubbles, all of the SP bars you see are barely moving, because a 20% chance of success is also an 80% chance of failure. So this SP battery ends up just being a nice bonus you can get, and getting level 3 is totally skippable if you need to save resources. The only thing I recommend unlocking in that case is level 1, since this is what gives Haruka a base target count of 2 instead of 1, and can actually impact her performance a lot. So S3 has 60% damage reduction, a lot of healing, levitate, an insane range. Are there even any flaws here? Well, not really. I think the best comparison I already made earlier is Nightingale. Her S3 doesn't have any flaws in its effects. Once you activate it, your team is basically immune to arts. For Haruka, once you use S3, everyone in range gets 60% damage reduction with her providing extra heals on top. There are some enemies immune to levitate, so she can't interrupt them, but it's 60% damage reduction. It doesn't matter. You will need to intentionally look for ways to kill or ops with this, so the only real weakness are factors outside the skill effects, like the 60 SP cost. That and the 40 seconds duration pretty much guarantee you only use it once per map, maybe 2 if it's a longer stage. But for this much defensive power, it is worth it. Really the only reason to not use S3 is that S2 is more general, so that's the one you'll bring in most cases. But that's still not the skill with the highest defensive boost in her kit, so if you have trouble with one specific high enemy DPS section of a map, you can bring S3 to help you there. Overall, Haruka is a very busted healer. Her bubbles are completely broken and already put her above a lot of the others, but then you add S2 and S3 and she's undisputedly at the top. First dethroning Nei as the best AFK healer, then competing with Nightingale in a lot of cases for the best arts protection, and finally taking the still not claimed crown against physical. Hypergriff created a monster with Haruka. Not only is her kit busted, but she also has one of their finest and cutest designs too. And whether if it's because her based or just want someone really strong for her accounts, I can definitely recommend her, especially because her banner partner is another phenomenal op. And if you still don't know why, you can go watch this video I made on Hoshiguma. Just comment what you think of Haruka before you go, as I make sure to delete any slandering towards her. Also leave a like and subscribe while you're at it. And if you want to support me, get a channel badge, use emotes on my comments, early access to videos, or even appear on a Blender special place, you can also consider becoming a member. I'll also think you're really cool if you do that.
いいハイボルテージバラージュ
That's it then. Bye.
ドクターとみんなが頑張ったおかげなのは分かってるけど、でもそのドクター、私が倒した敵っている？どれなのか教えてほしいな。